Good afternoon and welcome to Transaction TV. I'm your host, Anthony Atanasio, CEO of Hawk Strategies, and joining me is our sponsor of Transaction TV, Dr. Shua Sanchez of Save US. Doctor, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you. It's our 50th anniversary of Transaction. We have a record turnout, more workshops and panels, including one you'll be running later today. So we're really excited for this year's conference and really grateful for your sponsorship to allow us to have folks like you and the great work you're doing and other members of the conference be able to talk to folks about the great work that they're doing. So let's get into it. Tell us a little bit about Save Us and the important work that you're doing in the AV space.
Yeah, so I actually have a background in physics. A year ago, I was a physicist at MIT, but I've been following the issue of, AI, self-driving vehicles, regulations around these things for quite a while. And I and a small group of collaborators, we've started this new organization, which the long name is Safe Autonomous Vehicles Everywhere in the U.S. That shortens down to Save US. And the basic goal is to just try and get states to pass strong regulations on self-driving vehicles, also on partially automated vehicles. And we can get into what that means in a minute. But right now there's basically no federal regulation around self-driving vehicles. There is crash reporting at the national level to NHTSA, but most of the regulation burden falls on the states, and states need to take action.
So you've mentioned that there are three main pillars to Save Us,
Yeah.
and that the focus of your mission. Can you go over that with our audience and let them know what you're working on?
Yeah, so there's three basic goals of our campaign. One is around setting up a very strong state testing program for self-driving vehicles. It's modeled over the program that California has had running for more than a decade now. The second goal is to have improved standards for safety sensors. So some self-driving vehicles are designed with multiple types of safety sensors and multiples of each, and that maximizes safety. And other vehicles are designed with as few sensors as possible to, make them as cheap as possible, which of course, that sacrifices safety, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The third major goal is around honest advertising. So some people are buying vehicles that are officially classified as partially autonomous, which means they always need to have a human watching the road.
Okay.
But if, the advertising isn't clear enough, if the branding isn't clear enough, people might think that they're driving a real self-driving car, and then they don't pay attention to the road, and then they crash, and then there's, people get hurt.
Right.
Yeah,
So
dozens of people have died in these vehicles already.
And that is the number one issue in infrastructure and transportation is safety, right?
Right.
It's safety first. As a former assistant commissioner of the DOT, that's the number one is safety. So that leads me to another question about how you're tackling the issue of the commercial proliferation of AV and how it's disparate, right? Different companies are doing it differently. Some are safety focused. Some it doesn't appear as safety focused, but the reality is that they have different features and it's a different experience. So for the users who it's not new technology, but it's new on the commercial market. Can you explain a little bit about what's going on out there and how you're trying to bring awareness to that?
Yeah, so first thing I want to do is back up and just say that our group, we're not supported by industry at all.
Okay.
We are completely just focused on trying to make sure the roads are as safe as possible. We're not rooting for or against any particular company.
Yep.
There are right now in the US over 60 companies that are developing partial or fully automated vehicles. And any one of these companies could be developing a safer or a less safe vehicle, right?
Right.
So it comes to the testing program to show, is the vehicle actually operating safely or not? Now, different states have taken different approaches in trying to evaluate that. You have states like California that I would say have the strongest testing program in the country.
Okay.
Some of the things that they do that we want to see more states do, they have 3 different levels of permits. So first you have to apply for a permit with a human driver behind the wheel that's ready to, steer the vehicle, slam on the brakes at any point. If that can be done safely, then you can apply for a testing permit with the human driver out, but you still can't charge for rides. You have to show that the vehicle can drive by itself safely. At that point, you can apply for that third permit and, do commercial operation, right? So that is set up in such a way that you have to show that a vehicle is safe before you can start, trying to make money off of it. And that contrasts with states like Arizona or Texas or other states where essentially you put in an application to put your vehicle on the road, and the states let you put whatever you want on the road. You just
wow.
you just have to self-certify. In California, there is crash reporting. So every time the vehicle crashes, even a fender bender, that you have to write a report, send it to the state. In some other states like Texas and Arizona, there's no data reporting of any kind. So states don't know if these vehicles, that again, like day one, the company can start charging for rides if they want to. The state doesn't get any kind of data to know if they're operating safely or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a little scary to think of.
Yeah. Yeah, it
you
is.
know, when you think about how much human error we have to deal with on the roads.
Yeah.
Now you're having, what in essence are untested autonomous vehicles on the road mixed with all of the human error that goes on.
Yep.
I can see why the work you're doing is so important. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on in New Jersey and, how are you doing here? How are we as a state? And maybe what can our audience know about how to get involved in this?
Yep. Well, so New Jersey is one of the states that our organization is focusing on for a couple of reasons. One, there has been some interest in the state for a while of doing a self-driving vehicle pilot program, right? So there's been a bill that's been in the works for some years, hasn't been passed yet. But one of the great things about New Jersey, at least from my perspective, is it's a state that's not afraid of regulation. So some of these, southwestern states are, they're generally more of a political climate of being anti-regulation, and New Jersey is a state that, wants to put smart rules in place to keep people safe, right?
Yes.
So we would just like to see, the best rules that we can get established put into place. So like I said, New Jersey's been working on a bill to start the process of testing self-driving vehicles.
Okay.
We're not exactly sure in this moment what that final bill language is going to look like.
Okay.
But we do believe that some of our priorities are going to be at least considered in this bill. We've had conversations with the bill sponsors, and we're hopeful that these things around multiple permits, good data sharing practices, multiple safety sensors, honest advertising, we're hoping that these things will all be included in the final bill.
That's fantastic. And what can our audience, folks, this is the New Jersey's transportation community is here, right? This is what New Jersey Transaction is. What can they do to help?
Yeah, so one thing, you can go to our website, you can read a little bit more detail about what we're trying to get done. Another would be that when these bills come up for a vote, we're always looking for more support. There'll be opportunities to voice support.
That's great. And what is your
yes.
website for our audience?
Yeah, it's safeavs.com.
Excellent. So please take a moment and visit the website, see how you can get involved. We're all going to be living in a world we are living in a world with autonomous vehicles. We're going to be living in a world with a lot more of them.
Yeah.
Right?
And if I could make one last statement
Please.
on that, from our perspective, we're not necessarily pro or against AVs. It's more, we see that, 50 years from now, AVs are going to be everywhere.
Right.
It's really a question of what does the transition look like? How many people get hurt in that transition from no AVs to them being ubiquitous, right? We want to just make sure that as this technology becomes more common, there's smart rules set in place.
Well, as somebody who is an advocate for safety in the transportation community, I want to thank you personally. Anything that would make our roads safer is welcome. And this is very important work that you're doing as an advocate. So we at Transaction want to thank you for the work you're doing and thank you for joining us today. And we look forward to working with you here at the conference and beyond. And I want to just have our audience, we want to thank Dr. Shua Sanchez from Save Us for the great work that he and his organization is doing. And thank you for joining us for this episode of Transaction TV.